Hello class, this is Dr. Anderson, and I am just going to talk a little bit about some of the highlights of the echocardiogram lab. So these are some learning objectives that I kind of think are important. I think the first thing is, what are the basics? Echocardiography is basically shooting sound at an object. And it's really high frequency sound. Such a high frequency you can't hear it. So you have a probe that shoots those waves. They get reflected back. So Dr. Katz started talking about you shoot a wave, you shoot some waves at an object, and then they get reflected back, etc., etc. I didn't mean to change the frequency. So they get reflected back, the waves are collected by a receiver, and then there's just really sophisticated software that turns that into a picture. One aspect of this is that we're using the Doppler effect. That if you have red blood cells and they're moving towards the probe, when you bounce the light off of the probe, the sound off of the probe, it's going to come back with a higher frequency. Or if the object's moving away, the light, or what's the deal with the light? The sound is going to be reflected back with a lower frequency. So I think that's a big picture kind of thing. And then Dr. Katz showed you various aspects of echo. So he showed you a two-dimensional picture of the heart, and you could sort of see the whole thing. You could see right and left ventricles, and he wanted to be able to show you that the left ventricle would have a much thicker wall than the right ventricle. It didn't quite work out in that particular demo, but that's something that you would see. The bigger your picture, the harder it is to get resolution. So to do high resolution, you have to focus in on a smaller object. So you had the parasternal axis, and then you saw the mitral valve. It's open, and then it was closed. And you could see this thing kind of flapping back and forth. So you could actually observe the valve open and close. And then you could color it so that when the blood was going in the forward direction, it was colored red, and then it was going up in this direction towards the outflow track. It was colored blue. You could see yellow color with turbulence. There was a little teeny tiny blue saying that everybody has a little bit of normal regurgitation, that sort of thing. So that was using the effect of Doppler. Then there was a single pulse. I'm going to show you a couple of diagrams of what a single point looks like. And then there was the M-mode. The M-mode was shooting an arrow. So you've got your ventricle. You could shoot an arrow through two chambers. And you could see both chambers contracting. So here's that M-mode. And basically, if you shoot an arrow through the ventricle, you can actually see the chamber, and you can see the chamber when it's relaxed. So this is diastole, and you can see the chamber when it's contracting, and this would be systole, and you can use the ratios of these distances for the percent shortening or the fractional shortening. And the big thing is, if we have a P wave going on, the walls should be far apart, because this ventricle is filling. And then when we get the QRS, then we're going to get the signal to contract, and then after that we should see the walls coming together. Then you see the T wave, That's the signal to relax. So after that, we should see the start of diastole. So that was one big thing about the M mode, is you could calculate percent shortening, but you could also think about where we are in the cycle. If this is systole, then we're either in ejection or, and at this point we are in full ejection, right? Then we get the signal to relax, and as cells are relaxing, then you would see the chamber coming apart at diastole. So as I said in class, this is as much about thinking about how the electrocardiogram matches up with contractile events during the cardiac cycle. So a measure of contractility is ejection fraction. Stroke volume divided by end diastolic volume. So 50 to 60, I think I maybe had on another PowerPoint 55 to 70, you know, we're in the ballpark here. That is highly correlated to that fractional shortening. You calculate that from the M-mode echo, and that's a 30–40% range. These two things are not the same, but they're correlated. Now with a pulse Doppler, we could put the point at the AV valves, and what Dr. Katz showed you in class was the mitral valve. Whoops, I missed my T. I'll just stick that in there. The mitral valve. And here's the thing. The mitral valve should be closed. Actually, I should have a little thing over here, but I just have two sets of them. But the mitral valve should be closed during systole. So we have a QRS, and then we have a T wave. If we think about an action potential, that would be like drawn on top of that. The ventricles contracting and then starting to relax. Then the mitral valve is going to open, and you get that whoosh of filling. So this is the passive filling. Then you get a P wave, then the atria contract, and now you get active filling, which we also call atrial kick. So why would there be two sound signals through the mitral valve? Well, there's sort of two flows. There's the passive flow, there's the active flow. One should come before the P wave, one should come after the P wave. Now, Dr. Katz also showed you a pulse Doppler echo in the aorta. So we have a QRS. Then the ventricles contract, and when the ventricles contract, we should open the semilunar valves. And in this particular case, we saw the signal of the semilunar valves opening. And a couple of years ago when I made this diagram, we didn't see the signal that year. Just so happened we actually saw the valve open. Then this is ejection. The T wave happens, the ventricles relax. And as the pressure decreases in the ventricles, then the semilunar valve shuts. And notice when the valves open and when they shut, we got a sharp sound. When we got a flow of blood, the signal's a little wider. So the semilunar valve shuts because we just had a T wave and the ventricles are relaxing. And the aorta accepts that ejected blood, stretches out, and then as they recoil, then that propels the blood down along the aorta. So in my legend here, I have this labeled 1, 2, and 3. However, when Dr. Katz showed you this last week, we were able to see that first signal, and he talked about 4 signals. So from Dr. Katz's perspective, this is 1, opening the valve. This is 2, ejection. This is 3, closing the valve. This is 4, elastic recoil. And these are the 4. We wouldn't expect to see any more than that in a healthy valve, but those are the 4 sound signals that one could see if you put the measuring pulse at the aortic valve. Alrighty, so I'm hoping that this little video and this little some of these diagrams will help you reconcile the notes you have from Dr. Katz's PDF, and that it will make you feel like you've been prepared for the exam. And I think you guys are smart. I love how hardworking you all are, and I think you're going to be just great during the exam. So I'll talk to you later.